Adorable mischief maker. Elham Ghoreishi. Write this casually. I am the cause of the shame of the society of bad guys. I don't know why I ended up at the police station, but I just wanted to do a little mischief that wouldn't hurt anyone. I just wanted to do something cool. But now look at what happened. Being a bit mischievous should be a pro move, but here I am, just being naughty to keep things interesting. Usually I'm all about that positivity and not causing trouble for anyone. But sometimes I intentionally stir up a little trouble just to spice things up and add some excitement. It's like that touch of mischief makes life more fun and people more intriguing, you feel me? But hey, life rolls on. Picture this. You know how a professional bodybuilder looks 10 times more appealing when they strut their stuff in a sharp suit compared to their gym gear? Well, it's kinda like that. Then you spot a math professor rocking their sports clothes, and suddenly, you're like, wow, they're pretty cool. And here's the kicker, when a member of the royal fam from across the pond cracks a regular old joke, it's like 1,000 times funnier than when a stand-up comedian tries the same gag. And believe it or not, when that comedian tells a joke with a deadpan face, we burst into fits of laughter, even more than when they're laughing their heads off like a total goof while delivering it. Life's full of these quirky little twists, isn't it? You know what? I'm a firm believer in that whole walking on a tightrope deal. It's all about keeping your balance to stay alive in this crazy world. So, if you want to uncrease that folded paper, just give it another fold in the opposite direction, and bam, it's all flat again. Easy peasy. All right, check this out for another example to really drive the point home. Imagine this super attractive and sexy lady, who's not just a looker but is also super knowledgeable about all sorts of stuff. Her words, man, they're way more enjoyable than those serious TV experts trying to drop knowledge bombs. Now, let's flip the script. My 70-year-old grandpa, who's crushing it at Candy Crush on level 8000, looks absolutely adorable, right? But then there's my little bro, glued to his games 24/7, and let's be real, he's getting on everyone's last nerve. You see what I mean? Sometimes, it's all about the unexpected twist that makes things more interesting. Imagine this corporate big shot who moonlights as a rock and roll drummer in a dive bar band. The dude's got a double life, and his drum solos hit harder than any boardroom presentation. There's this super proper librarian, like the one you'd expect to shush you if you so much as sneezed. But when she's off the clock, she's an amateur stand-up comic, cracking jokes that'd make you laugh till you cry. Then you've got this biker with a heart of gold who knits sweaters for orphaned kittens. He may look all tough, but those kittens are the soft spot in his leather-clad heart. And don't forget the no-nonsense cop who, on weekends, is a salsa dancing sensation, twirling and spinning on the dance floor like there's no tomorrow. So, life's full of these awesome surprises, right? Now, back to the story. As I sat there in that dull, police station room, I couldn't help but chuckle at the absurdity of it all. Here I was, a walking contradiction, causing a ruckus and balancing it out with some good-hearted vibes. It's like I had this dual identity, stirring up mischief and spreading positivity in equal measure. And hey, maybe that's just what keeps life interesting with all its twists and turns. I couldn't wait to see where this crazy ride would take me next. Totally get where you're coming from. Life's all about finding that balance, right? So here's the thing. I've always been the goody two-shoes in my family. The one who did her chores diligently, never caused a fuss, and was pretty much everyone's rock. Now, as an art student who's all about loving every bit of life, I occasionally throw in a little prank just to shake things up. Like, not too long ago, a buddy who doesn't own a car asked if I could help him move some stuff. And guess what? I had all the free time in the world but made up excuses. I didn't want to be the person who's always at everyone's beck and call, you know? And then there's the time I swiped the neighbor's cat for a day. This guy's always leaving his poor feline friend high and dry, no food or water, just off doing his thing. Well, that day, I decided to play a little prank and let him feel what it's like when his cat goes MIA. It wasn't just mischief. It was a nudge for him to be more responsible and care for the little furball. Honestly, there's something liberating about these carefree pranks, a way to keep life interesting and remind folks to appreciate the little things. My mischief may not always be conventional, but it sure does shine a light on what really matters. All right, let's dial up the fun and coolness factor in these stories. So, there was this coworker, Tom, who was practically in love with his antique teacup collection. He bore us all to tears with endless teacup tales. One day I sneaked into his office and played musical chairs with his prized cups. When he walked in, the look on his face was pure teacup turmoil, like a porcelain orchestra gone rogue. Then there's my roommate, Sarah, and our never-ending prank war. It's like a comedy showdown every day. One morning, while she was still in dreamland, I swapped her phone alarm to blare a heavy metal anthem at eardrum-shattering volume. She jolted awake in sheer rock and roll chaos. And let's not forget Alex, the self-proclaimed coffee maestro. This guy flaunts his Java skills like it's a superpower. So, one day, I decided to mess with his amazing brew by switching his premium coffee beans with decaf. He ended up wondering why his coffee wasn't sprinting when it usually does. Talk about a caffeine come-down. But hey, these pranks, they're all in the spirit of fun and reminding everyone that life's a circus sometimes, and we've got to roll with the playful punches. After all, who wants to be serious when you can be seriously funny? Absolutely. Life's all about finding that balance. If you're super positive, throw in a little mischief now and then. And if you've got a bit of a naughty streak, sprinkle in some goodness to shine up your image. It's like the secret sauce to a healthy, well-rounded life. And you know what? If you take a peek at my examples, you'll see that it's totally spot on. So, here's the deal. What I'm saying is, you gotta find that sweet spot in your behavior so you don't end up like me. Take my grumpy old neighbor, for instance. She's been cranky forever, but one day, after eons, she decides to be nice and shares her Wi-Fi password with a young guy next door. Big mistake. This young dude goes wild with the Wi-Fi, using it like there's no tomorrow. The old lady's at her wit's end and comes to me, desperate, asking me to change the password. But you see, I was in full-on prankster mode that day, so I just told her I had no clue. Poor thing, she had to go on a wild goose chase to find someone else to fix her mess. I'm sharing all this to tell you about this crazy thing I did. Today, I found myself all alone in one of my university classes with some free time on my hands. You know how it is when boredom and mischievousness team up. I'd been on my best behavior for almost a whole month, so I figured it was time for a little fun. Now, here's where it gets wild. The next class scheduled in that room was our modern art class. You can imagine, it's packed with all kinds of colors and art supplies. And for some reason, I had a quirky idea. I had a pack of feminine pads in my bag, and I thought, why not use them for art? So I crumpled them up and added some color between them, then stuck them all on the class whiteboard. I had this whole vision of creating a super modern and eye-catching scene, maybe even sending a unique message in a playful way. In my mind, I thought this could be a kind of artistic protest against the pain that women go through during their periods. I wanted to be like Banksy, you know, the anonymous artist, and just add some dynamic vibes to the class. So, after I finished my impromptu art project, I left the room and headed to the cafeteria for a bite. When I eventually made it back to the class, I noticed something crazy had gone down. There was a full-on fight happening, and it didn't take me long to realize that it was all because of my little artistic endeavor. Sure thing, let's keep it casual. Here's the scoop. So, remember Farhad, the quiet and kind classmate? He had this private chat with our art teacher, Mrs. Gonzalez, about his art exhibition. But right in the middle of their convo, Mrs. Gonzalez's white pants decided to go all crimson. Farhad, being the nice guy he is, pointed it out in the nicest way possible. Now, Mrs. Gonzalez, she's a total pro, but she had to dash home for a quick outfit change. She was probably hoping this whole thing would stay low-key, just between her and Farhad. But then, thanks to my not-so-brilliant sense of humor, she thought Farhad had spilled the beans to the whole class, making him the butt of the joke. So when the rest of the gang showed up for class and laid eyes on my, let's say, unique artwork, the room burst into laughter and criticisms. It was all good fun, until Professor Gonzalez herself burst in. She was on edge, screaming her head off, and she even dragged the university director along for the ride. Mrs. Gonzalez didn't waste a second pointing fingers, insisting that this was all Farhad's doing, dripping with his supposed misogynistic views. In her eyes, my artwork was a glaring example of sexual violence. And just like that, my little art prank has snowballed into this colossal mess. It was like walking into a real mess when I got there. Farhad was desperately trying to clear his name, Mrs. Gonzalez was getting all flustered and laying into him, and the manager was doing his best to play peacemaker. With a heavy heart and a guilty conscience, I piped up and confessed that the whole art disaster was my doing, not Farhad's. But instead of things calming down, Mrs. Gonzalez got even more jittery. She started saying things like, "You're a good girl, and you're just trying to cover up for someone from your own country who did something nasty." Well, when Farhad heard that, he just lost it. He went off the deep end, yelling all sorts of stuff. And then, boom, he punched me right in the face, and my nose took the brunt of it. But here's the kicker. Nobody believed poor Farhad's side of the story. They pinned it all on him, and he ended up getting arrested. So now I'm sitting here at the police station with a battered, bloody face, determined to go give my consent that I've got no complaints against him for breaking my nose. It's the least I can do to make things right. In conclusion, I want to highlight the significance of maintaining balance. Effectively manage both the mischievous and kind deeds you engage in. The end. Be sure to like our content and stay tuned by subscribing.